Welcome to today's webinar presented by TAFE New South Wales on study tips and tricks. So we've got Diana and Nancy joining us here today to present the session. So Nancy has over 20 years experience in the industry in accounting and finance sector, with the last 10 years focused on education within TAFE New South Wales. And Diana is responsible for the higher education, financial planning courses across the state and CPD commercial delivery within TAFE New South Wales. So welcome to Diana and Nancy, who will be presenting the session. Just a little bit of housekeeping. Today's session will be CPD accredited. The CPD certificates will be sent out to you all via email after the session, so they will take about 2 weeks to arrive. And a recording of today's session will also go on the AFA website. So I'm going to pass it over to Nancy and Diana now.
Hi everybody, I'm Diana Bulgaci.
Hi, I'm Nancy McCall.
And thank you for joining us today at this webinar session for AFA members. If you've got any questions, if you could please ask them through the Q&A chat. You should be able to see that on the bottom of the screen, I believe. Yep. And we'll also have time after the presentation, approximately 10-15 minutes, to ask any questions at the end. So we'll get started with some fast facts. Oh, maybe not yet. Yep. There we go. Thanks. So here's some fast facts just about the current timeframes that we've got. So everybody should kind of be aware that from the beginning of last year, the 1st of January 2019, there's some certain dates where you've got your new entrants and the education requirements that a new entrant has to have, and also if you're considered an existing advisor, what the timeframes are for those. I know that the timeframes are in Parliament and potentially being extended. However, that hasn't been legislated as yet. So the timeframes currently are still that all existing advisors need to pass the FASEA exam by the 1st of January 2021, which is just under 12 months away. And you need to meet the new education requirements by 1 January 2024. Being from TAFE New South Wales, we're FASEA accredited. We have undergraduate and postgraduate courses. And I'm going to be speaking about our bridging subjects, the graduate certificate and the graduate diploma this morning. And Nancy will discuss the FASEA exam and give you some exam tips and tricks as to how you should manage your study time and actually on the day as well. So the first thing, I suppose, for everybody is we might be a little bit nervous coming back to study, particularly if we haven't studied for a while. With the graduate diploma courses, they're an AQF 8 qualification, which means it's postgraduate. The study commitment is normally around 10 hours per week, and that's regardless of whether you're studying on campus or online. For a lot of advisors out there who've previously only completed a diploma or an advanced diploma qualification, it's very different learning. It's a very different environment. A diploma is an AQF 5 level qualification. An advanced diploma is an AQF 6, bachelor 7. So if you've completed the diploma or the advanced diploma, you're jumping from a 5-6 up to an 8 level. Therefore, 10 hours, I know it sounds a lot, but depending on the individual and your own study patterns, you shouldn't find it too difficult, particularly as advisors and being professionals in this area, you're quite familiar with a lot of the topics. I've talked about how higher education is very different, and some of the ways in which it's different is that you're actually having to apply the knowledge. What you're perhaps learning as a topic, whether it's ethical frameworks, how does that actually apply when you've got a client sitting in front of you or when there's a problem that's come up? You actually have to undertake some critical analysis. same kind of concept. Here's a client, here's a case study, something's happened. How are you actually, what's the actual problem? And what can you deduce from that problem, and how can you actually apply it, understanding the legislation, or for example, some behavioural finance factors. It requires independent self-study. However, our academic staff are here and available to support you across your learning journey. The main thing is there's no rote learning. I know that for some of us that might be hard. I remember having, my mum telling me to sleep with a textbook under my pillow because miraculously I'd remember what's in there. Unfortunately, it doesn't work like that in higher education. You actually need to understand what you're learning and be able to apply it to a situation. With our bridging courses, all advisors must complete the FASEA ethics bridging course. So it doesn't matter if you've got a PhD, you still have to complete the ethics bridging subject, because that's actually, there's a new code, there's new legislation, and all of us need to complete that subject. TAFE New South Wales has 3 accredited bridging subjects, and we've designed a graduate certificate in financial planning professional practice, where those 3 bridging subjects are included within that qualification. So advisors, for example, that only need to complete the 3 bridging subjects, an idea or a strategy going forward could be to enrol in a graduate certificate with us, or even another provider if they have the same kind of course structure, where you can complete the 3 bridging subjects, should be able to apply for RPL for the 4th capstone subject, which in our case is applied financial advice, and actually receive a qualification at an AQF 8 level, being a graduate certificate in financial planning professional practice. So that's a really great idea and a way to set yourself apart from others if you need those 3 bridging subjects. If you only need to do 1, you can just enrol in 1 as a standalone. And of course, we've got special discounts for AFA members. You receive a 10% discount. Each subject then comes down to $1,935. As the lead course coordinator for this program, one of the main things I always get asked is, what are the assessments? And I see students, shopping around for assessments. I don't want to do a final exam. I want to do an assignment. I don't like to do group assessments. The assignments and assessments have been designed to actually apply and test what you know to a current situation or what's been happening in the industry. Think of the Royal Commission, think about some of the case studies and some of the practices that have been highlighted, some of them quite unsavoury. And in terms of the description of the subject, obviously it needs to cover the FASEA framework. Our courses also need to be accredited by TEXA, which is the Education Authority. And with this course, students are having to understand how to apply the new FASEA code and get an idea of what an actual ethical framework is. What are the different ethical frameworks? Are we looking at, and what's the history behind it? Is it deontological? Are we looking at consequentialism? How do I come up with this decision, or why am I aligned to thinking in one way? Or how am I judging the behaviour of others, or coming to a conclusion in that the way I behaved is okay? So there's some of the topics that you'll be exploring. With each of these subjects, regardless of whether it's a bridging subject or a normal subject in a grad cert or grad dip, it's a 12-week teaching semester. So it goes pretty fast. 12 weeks might not sound like a lot, but it goes pretty quickly. Regardless of your mode of study, whether you're looking to study online or in a face-to-face environment, there's small class sizes. very much a personalised learning environment. Everyone's there to support the students, whether you've been studying recently or it's been a couple of years. If we have classes at our Ultimo campus and also online, any student that's in, you know, Sydney, I highly recommend that if you can attend a class, come to class. You'd be amazed at the different networking opportunities that you're going to come across. You're sitting in class with like-minded advisors, having similar problems and issues that you can actually discuss and analyse, and it's a great learning environment. By the same token, if you're online, similar. Each week we have recorded webinars where your academic lecturer or teacher will have a recorded 30-minute session. During that 30-minute session, they'll discuss the current topic, recap any of the questions that were from last week. For example, if there was a case study or some tutorial questions that you needed to unpack and apply some of the learning, and also discuss the learning outcomes of that topic. In terms of your assessments, I know this is really high on everybody's list. There's a class test, there's a case study, and a critical discussion on the main elements of that case study. What did you come up with? What were the problems? How did you come up with a solution? Did you all apply the same framework? Did you all come up with the same standards?
We've got some questions. Is that okay?
Of course.
Just a question, Di. Which TAFEs other than Ultimo offer face-to-face?
None at this stage, unfortunately. And the reason why, as you can all appreciate, to be able to deliver this subject, we need to have teachers that are financial planning, that have worked in financial planning and that actually have a master's degree. They're quite hard to find. Anyone out there that's looking forward to do some part-time teaching, Angela and Lisa have my email address. Feel free to send me an email, but we've only currently got it at our Ultimo campus and online.
And I guess that's the other thing. We're trying to meet the needs of others that can't do face-to-face. So we have developed an online component, which is very interactive and will be supported as well.
And those 30-minute webinars are recorded, but they'll be at a time that suits most advisors, which we generally find is about 8 p.m. at night.
So if they attend the face-to-face sessions, can they still access the webinars?
Yes. What you'll find is, as a TAFE New South Wales student, and for example, enrolments applications close next week, and we've got orientation next week, you will receive a subject guide before the first week of class that sets out your topics for the next 12 weeks. You actually know what you're going to be studying during the semester and what all your assessments are and when they're due. So you've got a pretty good idea and a very clear understanding of what your learning journey will be like at the beginning.
But we will place those webinars on our online.
They're on our Moodle, so all students have access to a learner management system. On that system, the webinars, the reading material, your PowerPoints, links to additional articles and so on.
And just one more, is the case study done in class also?
No.
Supported, but not done in class.
Sorry guys, I'd love to be able to say yes and you can all work on it together. Well, you can work on it together. However, every student needs to submit an individual case study. And again, that's just demonstrating that you can apply what you're learning to the problem at hand.
But our teaching staff will go through what's required in great detail.
Yeah, and just another point, one of the things, again, that sets TAFE apart is that we've got a long history of teaching and training adult learners. There's additional tutorial support, and we have specific adult education teachers who can assist you, for example, with literacy. Like, there's no essay in this subject, but if there was,
or you need support in that area,
yeah, we're here to help.
A couple more.
Okay.
Sorry.
Oh, go for it.
What is the online course cost? They're based in Queensland.
It's $1,935 regardless of online or face-to-face.
That's per subject.
Per subject.
Depending on what you need to do.
And can you defer the payment, or do you have to pay it as a lump sum upfront?
2 installments.
But it depends if you.
Oh, you have, if it's if you're enrolling in the bridging as a standalone, you have, it's 2 upfront. It's upfront payment, but can be in 2 installments within, I think, 4 weeks. So it's pretty much no fee. There's fee help for the graduate certificate and the graduate diploma. But if you just need to do a bridging subject, unfortunately, there's no fee help available because it doesn't meet the government rules to enrol in a standalone subject.
So if you do the graduate certificate, for example, because you need to do the 3 subjects, you can use fee help as an option.
Yes, however, advisors, you're all finance professionals. I would hope that you can afford it up front.
And it's a tax deduction.
Yeah.
And just one more, is there an exam at the end, or just a class test, case study, critical discussion?
Depends on the subject. Shall we go? Keep
In
going
this
through?
subject, no invigilated exam. It's a class test, case study, and a critical discussion on your case study for the ethics bridging subject. Out of the bridging subjects, the only one that has an invigilated or final exam is your commercial and corporations law.
It's to meet TPB requirements.
Oh, right.
That's the reason.
Great. Thanks, ladies.
Do you want to?
Oh, behavioural finance. Okay, this is the other one that most financial advisors will need to do. And again, depending on your previous study, you would have come across some psychology, client relationships. This is actually looking at the way investors make decisions, why we make some decisions, why we react or don't react in certain ways, and the psychological theories behind those investment decisions. Again, similar 12-week teaching semester, workshop style, dedicated webinars. This time your assessments are weekly tutorial participation. So, and that makes up a component of the overall mark that you get at the end of the year, at the end of the semester, sorry. So each week, tutorials, again, class test and a case study with a presentation. Any questions on this
I
one?
think there's 2 that raised their hands or something.
No, not this one, just to repeat the question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, sorry.
I'll lean over and
Okay.
I've got a lot.
So there's no questions. We can keep going.
Keep going.
Okay, commercial and corporations law. This is a bridging subject, and any student that's looking, and if I can just explain to the RPL, I get so many questions regarding RPL. I've done tax, I've done law 5 years, 10 years. FASEA have actually specified that no one can get RPL for ethics, but to receive RPL for either behavioural finance or the commercial and corporations law, a student must actually have demonstrated that they've done this previous learning recently. If you've done law in an undergraduate degree 10 years ago, generally, even if it's business law, finance law, that's fantastic. Unfortunately though, unless it's specifically covered Chapter 7 and financial advisors, your best interest duty, your PDS, FSG doesn't match the learning outcomes of the new FASEA curriculum.
And I think it needs to be important that we don't pick what your RPL is. It's what has been stated.
Yeah, by FASEA. So we're just following the FASEA guidelines. And I mean, you know, some of the other things that I'm seeing is that students will say, well, this provider gave me RPL in this instance. Again, my advice is that's fine if you're getting RPL from another education provider. At the end of the day, it's not us as the education provider who has to demonstrate that as an advisor, I've met these new education requirements. You will need to be through your licensee. So just something to keep in mind if you're looking for RPL. So again, with this law bridging subject, accredited by FASEA, also accredited by the Tax Practitioners Board as meeting the requirements for commercial law for a tax financial advisor. Questions? Can move on. All right.
No, there is a question.
One question, sorry. So what they want to know is what percentage of the overall mark would the exam be?
Are we talking about?
If it's a class test, it depends what the weighting is of the other components. So it's generally 20%, 25%. Each of them have a different weighting.
Do you know the final exam?
The only commercial law has of the final exam, it's 50%. But regardless of whether you're studying online or face-to-face, the exams, if you're studying online, will be completed in that online environment.
In an invigilated condition, though.
Yeah, under invigilated conditions. But what we generally find, if you're a student and you're completing the work during the week and you've completed your case study or your class test, you generally know enough to pass. It's only those students that aren't studying each week. And I can speak from experience and over 15 years experience teaching, understanding students.
Is there anything else?
No, that's all.
Okay, you want to keep going?
All right, so with our graduate certificate in financial planning professional practice, again, this has the 3 bridging subjects, and the 4th subject where you could be applying for some RPL is the applied financial advice. Same format as previously, so I won't explain that in any more detail. The graduate diploma of financial planning has 8 subjects. All graduate diplomas need to have 8 subjects. 4 of the subjects are the ones that are included in the graduate certificate, and of course have the FASEA bridging subjects in them. The additional subjects that, for example, if you're a new entrant or you're looking to be a career changer, you've only got a diploma of financial planning, you need to complete all 8. The additional ones are insurance and super, investment, retirement and estate planning, and taxation planning, which is the TPB approved course in tax. Now, something to remember in terms of students who are seeking RPL, if you've got an ADFP, you can apply for 2 subjects RPL. I'm not mandating, or TAFE New South Wales isn't mandating what subject you can get in RPL. I'm not giving you a challenge test. I am assuming that as a professional financial advisor, you know what you know, and therefore what RPL you might be seeking. So, for example, a student might, an advisor might say, okay, I've done an ADFP. Under FASEA rules, I get 2 subjects as RPL. My question is, okay, which 2 subjects do you want? Insurance and super? Do you give insurance specialist advice? You don't need to do insurance. Do you want investments? Do you want retirement and estate planning? At the end of the day, each advisor knows what their expertise is, or on the other hand, where they could potentially do with a little bit of a refresher. I'm imagining that a lot of the advisors are registered with the TPB. However, that might have been in the old, under the old registration, where you might need to be increasing your education standards. So we are not mandating what RPL, in terms of those additional 4 subjects that are in the graduate diploma, that you have to do. You can choose. I'll move over to Nancy. Here's the FASEA exam. Thanks everyone for being patient, because I know this is what you probably all wanted to see.
Any questions, or can I keep going?
Keep going.
Okay, so the FASEA exam, everybody who is a current financial advisor that's on the register needs to complete the exam, as Diana said, by 1st of Jan 2021. The exam test, really, it's testing the advisor's knowledge in 3 specific areas. It's on financial advice for regulatory and legal requirements, financial advice construction, and lastly, applied ethical and professional reasoning and communication. So they're the 3 main areas. How long is the exam? So the exam goes for 3.5 hours. It's online, and you have to go to a specific centre to do the online exam. And in that 3.5 hours, you have 15 minutes reading time. It consists of multiple choice questions, true or false, and a written response question. You're going to ask, do you have open book? Yes, you have open book for statutory material, and when you're actually at the centre, they will have it there for you of what you can open. And I'll go through an example of that a bit later on. Part of the exam, there are 33 learning outcomes that the exam actually covers that you need to know. Now, if you go onto the FASEA website, there are certain things that I recommend that you read. And the first one is exam preparation guidance. This is the, I guess, booklet to go through because it actually goes into detail about getting you ready for the exam. It actually goes through all the requirements and all the material that you will need to know prior to actually sitting the exam, okay? Another one is an exam preparation or exam practice questions. So FASEA have stated or given out some examples of what some of the questions will actually look like. And there's a great video on the FASEA website called Exam Candidate Video. Is there a question? No. Okay. Now, the actual FASEA exam costs $540 plus GST for every sitting that you sit. Again, open book statutory material, there's a video on understanding how to navigate that, and I advise that you actually go through that before sitting the exam. On the table or on my PowerPoint currently, we've given you the next 2 sitting dates. So there's a sitting date between the 2nd to the 7th of April this year, and registration for that sitting closes on the 13th of March. The next sitting is the 11th to the 16th of June, and registration's open on the 2nd of March, and that will close on the 22nd of May. Just a couple of things with that. To actually pass the FASEA exam, it's stated that you need to have a credit level, and that's stated by FASEA. And if you're not successful in the first attempt by achieving a credit level, what they've stated is that you can't sit the exam in the next sitting. You've actually got to wait 1 sitting to be able to sit the next one. So for example, if you do sitting 5 and you don't get through, you aren't allowed to sit sitting 6. You actually have to wait for sitting 7 to be able to do it again. Are there any questions? Do you want me to keep going?
Keep going.
So exam preparation. We thought we'd give you some kind of tips to help you through preparing for the exam. My advice is prepare early. Read the suggested reading material, and if you go to the exam preparation guide on page 6, it actually goes through the reading list, and it goes through everything that you're meant to actually read and understand on all the legislation. As you're doing that and preparing, take notes. And the best way of getting through it, I know I'm going to sit the exam sitting 6. I've got this much time to actually prepare for the exam. I'm going to organise a study planner or diary. You guys are all very busy in your day-to-day jobs, and sometimes our jobs and our family commitments take over. But if you actually plan for it, you'll actually get through it. And always have regular breaks. Don't cram. Study to suit. Everybody has a different way of how they study. Some are visual learners. Then use diagrams or pictures to help you remember things. If you're better at listening, record it so you remember it. Form study groups with yourselves in the group at work, or if you know anyone else that needs to sit it. Exam details. Exam includes, as I said before, a multiple choice question, and there are 4 answers that you can choose for. All of them have A, B, C, D. So you need to choose one of the A, B, C, D. The true or false will ask you to determine whether the statement that they've displayed is true or false. And lastly, the short answer questions will require you to respond by providing 1 or 2 short paragraphs to the particular questions. Be prepared, plan, read and prepare. Do as much as you can. Now at TAFE New South Wales, we have an online course that actually goes through the 33 learning outcomes to help you study. And we've done a mock or a practice 3.5-hour exam to help you under exam conditions and to practice your knowledge and skills. If you're feeling nervous and anxious, that is normal. Everybody sitting in exams are feeling exactly the same thing, and everybody is going through the same. A tip or a couple of things: read the question carefully. Take your time to read it and think, what are they asking? Are they asking for me to make a recommendation, or do they want me to have advice? Do I need to apply some legislation, FASEA standard, or is it from the Corps Act? Take your time to read it. The other thing that some people do is they overanalyze a question. Don't read more into it than what's asked of the question. It's pretty concise, clear, and accurate. Time management. One of the things is, you might think that 3.5 hours is a long time, but it's not. So a technique is maybe answer easy questions first, get that out of the way. Other thing is answer all questions as you're going through, even if you're not sure of the answer, but make notes of the ones that you want to go back to, okay, during the exam. Just in case you run out of time, you've at least put an answer there. If you feel stressed, or you kind of get a mind blank, just stop what you're doing, breathe through your nose, breathe through your nose, hold it, and then breathe out, and you'll be fine. Some of the other things that I've come across is, because you're all sitting in the, well, not everybody, but say there's 20 of you sitting in the one room, it actually gets quite noisy with people typing. So if you get distracted by noise, just a recommendation, use earplugs to help you close off all the noise. Is there a question?
Got a question. Just want to remind people that some questions have multiple parts, so they have to answer each multiple part to get the answer.
That's correct.
Do you want to just repeat that?
Okay, so they were asking that some questions have multiple parts, and that is correct. You might have a case study, for example, it might have part A, do this, and then part B, do that. So make sure that when you're reading the question that you're also aware that there may be several parts to a particular question. What is the exam going to cover? Okay, 3 areas that it's looking at is the Australian Financial Act, and the Statement of Advice and Code of Ethics and Standards. I'm pretty sure, is this PowerPoint going to go out to everybody? So you're all going to receive a copy of it, and it shows in details on the website. Okay, and each of those topic areas have particular areas. So for example, Australian Financial Act, it's financial advice, regulatory and legal requirements. It's the Corps Act, the extra part, Chapter 7, AML, Privacy and Tax Agent Services Act. Okay, next part. If I go through this, it kind of gives you an indication of roughly the percentage overall of the exam. So 30% of the exam is based on the ASIC and Corps law. 15% is on the FASEA Standards Authority or the Code of Ethics. And 20% is based on financial advice construction. 25% is on ethics, applied ethical and professional reasoning and communication. And the last 10% is on client and consumer behaviour, engagement and decision making. That kind of gives you a rough idea of how much time or knowledge that you'll need in each of those particular areas. Okay, a roadmap of how to roughly answer a question. So phase 1, obviously read the question very carefully. If it's too long, then take points or look at the key points of the question and the case study. If you're able to answer the question, then do so pretty much straight away. If you're not sure and you need to look it up, then look up the required standards, etc., which I'll show you what it looks like in a minute as an example. But just another tip, don't spend time on every question and looking up what the requirements are, because you will run out of time. So that's just a few tips. Okay, now here's a scenario of what it would look like on the screen. On the left-hand side, you've got the scenario listed, and on the right-hand side, you've got the question, okay? And you have to choose which one. So that's what it would look like. And there's a video on there that will navigate through that, and it's on this PowerPoint. Now, on the next slide, it actually shows you the legislation. So these are the things that you will be allowed to look up during the exam. You cannot open Google and look up what you want. You will only be given these options to be able to look up the requirements. So that just gives you an understanding of what's there. If you can, as I said before, if you can answer the question without looking up, then actually do that. All right, so at this stage, we thought we will test your knowledge. Here's an example or two examples that we have prepared. It's a preparation exam question. So have a little read of it, and then I will pop up the answers shortly. Yeah, have some music in the background. That might distract you. Okay, for the first one, here's the answer. And hopefully you all got that one. This is an easy start off question, and I think they have a few of those, and then they get quite difficult as you get through the exam. So question A, or answer A, is the answer: civil action. The next one is D, advice regarding a managed investment fund. Now, part of our online mock exam or practice exam, we've done something very similar. Is we've actually put in some multiple choice questions, some true or false, and some case study questions, which you have to answer some short answers. And when we give the answer, we actually give you a hint of why we've stated those answers to help you through your study. Okay, here's another one. So this is a bit longer, and the requirements now is testing your true or false statements below 1, 2, or 3. So I'll give you another minute or so to go through that. Okay, let's have a look. Collecting and verifying customer identification information. Is that true or false? Let's have a look. I'm sure you all said true because it's required under legislation. 2, undertaking a verification of banking and finance the company uses. Is that true or false? It's false. The financial institution information not required under legislation. Now, the 3rd, identify whether a customer is an immediate family member of a politically exposed person. PEP. What is that? It's true. It's required under legislation, CDD obligation under the AML legislation. Did you get them right? Yay! Okay, we've got some time for questions.
Congratulations to Kerry Ray, she got 100%.
Yay!
There was a question about the RPL in terms of, I think, commercial law subject. How recent is recent? Is 2017?
Oh, that's recent.
Yeah.
In terms of, so the question was, what's recent, and would 2017 study be considered recent? Yes, it would. What you would need to do is to supply the education provider an example of what you learned in that subject to make sure that it maps across to what the curriculum requirements are under FASEA. So FASEA actually have listed a list of topics that we as education providers have to map back our subjects
We'll make
to.
sure that we cover.
Yep. It needs to match about 80%.
So Nadia has done taxation law and commercial law through IIT 2017.
Who's IIT?
International Institute of Technology.
So we'd have to actually have a look.
Yeah, you need
individual basis.
Yeah. And as advisors, one of the other tips that I recommend to everybody, especially if they send across their RPL and then don't necessarily like the decision that I'm giving them, is there is actually a link on the FASEA website where you can go in and you tick boxes. Am I existing? You answer a couple of questions, put in what you've learned in your undergraduate degree, and FASEA will actually give you advice as to where you fit in and how much RPL you need to do. In regards to Tax Practitioner Board, everyone can actually have a look themselves to see whether the study that they've completed before is approved by the TPB. TPB lists actually approved and unapproved courses and units of competency.
It's all available on the TPB website.
Yeah, they are.
That's all the questions that we have.
Well, thank you, everybody.
Thank you. We hope this has helped you
make some decisions, help you navigate going forward, and our email addresses are available. Feel free to contact us if you have any questions, and good luck for those who have to sit the FASEA exam.
good luck.
All right, thank you so much for presenting that today. That's great. If anybody, obviously we'll make Diana and Nancy's email addresses public so everybody can contact, or you can contact us at Campus AFA, and we can help you with any queries, and obviously pass you on to Nancy or Diana.
Can I just say one more thing, just about the discounts that are available for AFA members?
Yep.
So that's on your website.
Yes. Yep. So we have all the discounts available on the website under the education, under the campus section. But if you have any questions about those discounts, please don't hesitate just to pick up the phone and give us a call, and we can walk you through them. Or if you just got general questions around your FASEA pathway, or you're not sure of what it is, we can actually do a FASEA assessment for you at Campus AFA to help you, I guess, find your direction and your education pathway to make course decisions on what you need to study, or the best study options for you. All right. Great, thank you everybody. Like I said previously, we will have the CPD certificates for the session out within the next 2 weeks, and the session will also be published on the AFA website. Thanks guys.